You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mighty Blue podcast. I'm really sorry for the delay in getting this out to you all, but the service has been particularly tricky recently, and I'm only now in Hot Springs getting access to Wi-Fi. I'm afraid you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because for the next 3 days, and it's now Thursday, I'm going to be in the woods, and I will eventually be at a hostel on the Monday afternoon. So hopefully I can get it out that Monday evening. But you know, it's just the way it goes. I'm sure you're bearing with me, and hopefully, and from what I hear from you, you're kind of enjoying it. The recap today is mainly about my time with Dana, though, of course, there was hiking either side of that day. The zero came in at a good time for me because about 1 month into this, and I feel that I'm getting a little lonely out here. Several of the people I met earlier on are either in front of me or behind me, and I'm definitely not in a bubble right now. Obviously, there are lots of people around, and some I haven't met and some I've briefly been introduced to or spoken with. But I often go several hours before seeing anybody, literally anybody. And it's kind of surprising to me. And I know that Dave Santee last year had an issue with this. You know, you suddenly get to this position where there are people behind you, people in front of you, but not anywhere near you. It's kind of, I know it happens in hikes, and I think I'm prepared for it. The arriving in Hot Springs has given me an opportunity to reconnect with a previous guest on the podcast, Paul Curtin, or Magnum, and I'll be having a beer with him tonight, which I'm looking forward to a lot. This has happened to me in hikes before, so I'm not particularly concerned by it, though I welcome the opportunity to connect with more people as the next month or so unfolds. So if you have reached out in the past and you want to meet up, I'll be only happy to, because I'm getting lonely out here. So it'd be nice to meet up with some of you. So catching up with Dana was a real treat and something that I actually needed at this stage of my hike. We've always been really good at just hanging out with one another. Don't have to do anything, don't have to talk to each other necessarily. We just like hanging out with each other. And our zero day kind of reflected that. With that being said, let's get started with day number 28 though. First, let's hear from our sponsor, Polar Steps. If you're heading out on a long hike this year, which I am, I've got something I think you're going to love. It's called Polar Steps. It's a travel tracking app that's going to become a favourite with hikers. You set your start date, let it run quietly in the background, and it maps your entire journey automatically, all on your own beautiful spinning 3D globe. And don't worry, the tracking feature uses about 4% of your battery on a single charge, so it's not going to kill your phone when you're out there. You can add photos and short journal entries as you go, so your map shows you where you were, and your words remind you of what that day actually felt like. There's a light social layer too. Family and friends can follow along, or you can keep it completely private. As every hiker says, hike your own hike. And when you're done, you can relive the whole thing in the app or turn it into a stunning coffee table book with your route, stats, photos and stories. And did I tell you that it's entirely free to download and use? The only time you'll be paying anything is if you decide to turn your trip into a book. That's Polar Steps. Track it now, treasure it forever. Day 28, which is last Sunday by the way, Cosby Knob Shelter to Interstate 40, a 9.6 mile day. I've mentioned before that in my 2 previous through hikes, I got snow in the second half of the Smokies. This time it looked like I was going to get away with it. I knew that the weather was turning and that rain's on the way, so at Cosby Knob Shelter, I set up my airbed and sleeping bag as soon as I got there in the shelter. Several people tried to camp and probably regretted it. The rules in the Smokies are very much that you have to stay in the shelter unless it's full. And I've got to say, 1 or 2 of us have had some liberal interpretations of what is full in terms of the shelter usage. But this time, there was no doubt about it. I didn't want to pack up a wet tent, and it seemed likely that from the radar that we could see that we were going to get lambasted with rain at some stage in the middle of the night. And it was at around midnight, almost exactly, the rain started lashing down, and I was really grateful for being under cover. The roof of the shelter was perspex and made a hell of a noise with it coming down quite dramatically. So, and I was very happy that I wouldn't have to pack up that wet tent. These shelters, I'm not a big fan, and frankly, not many of us are. There are way too many mice there, apparently, although I must admit I didn't hear any in the night at all. But they are breeding grounds for mice who want to attack every part of your food, certainly. And people report having mice run over their face in the middle of the night. I certainly don't think that happened to me. I did hear one story. One woman claimed that a mouse had set up a nest in her hair and had some babies in the middle of the night. I'm not entirely sure how true that is, but yeah, you kind of never know, do you? My alarm went as usual. I opened my eyes, got up, and came out of the shelter, because normally shelters are three-sided things, and this is a three-sided one, but in each of the shelters in the Smokies, there's been a big grey tarp covering the front, so you can't really see what it's like outside. And as soon as I came out of the shelter, I realised that my record of having snow in the Smokies was still intact. It was a light dusting of snow on the ground. And I don't know how it did that, because it seemed to be pouring all the time with rain. That's what we could hear, but it was definitely some snow as well. And I was a little concerned about my filter, as I'd left my Catadine hanging up outside ready for water in the morning. The water didn't freeze and it continued to work, but I'm a little bit concerned it may have frozen a little bit in the night and lost its effectiveness. Now I'm in Hot Springs, which is a few days later, obviously. I see there is a replacement, but it's not one that's going to fit my Catadine setup. So I'm going to go with the current filter for some time. I'm going to wash it out and see how it works. Fortunately, the trail wasn't affected by the snow, and the walk down was pretty straightforward. Because of the 2 longish days that I'd pushed out the previous 2 days, the hike down the mountain and out the Smokies was relatively easy. Though I must say that some of these long descents are really battering my toes right now. I know that when I went in 2014, my first hike, I wore a size 13 shoe. And the outfitter, remember I knew nothing about hiking at all then, the outfitter recommended I should buy a size 14 boot to compensate for that. And I did, I bought a size 14 boot. And my feet definitely grew. And I'm kind of wondering whether or not my feet have grown to size 15 and whether I should consider, or size 14 rather, and whether I should consider a size 15 boot. I'm still pondering that. And I may go back to the outfitter in a minute just to see what they have and see what it's like. My plan was to meet Dana at Davenport Gap. However, I had misremembered exactly what Davenport Gap was. It was simply a road crossing on a pretty quiet road, and even though Dana had found it on her GPS, I actually wanted to be picked up a little further on. So I called her and told her to re-enter her destination to Standing Bear Farm. This way, I could get down the mountain, under Interstate 40, and just walk 50 yards up the road at a spot where she could pull in on her way to Standing Bear Farm. Obviously, we wouldn't go there. This worked perfectly, as Dana rounded the corner and saw me just 50 yards up the road, sitting in my chair, smiling broadly. I'm going to play her reaction after this. And by the way, we did intend to record while she was here, but what with everything going on, we kind of forgot about it. And so I actually called her when she was home, and that recording is one I'm going to play. We then had a bit of an adventure getting to Maggie Valley, where Dana had booked us accommodation for the next 2 nights. First off, we had to visit Ken at the Discerning Hiker Hostel. Unfortunately, Ken was sick and had cancelled our reservation, hence the 2 nights in Maggie Valley, but I needed to visit because there were 4 packages to pick up. 2 were from Dana. 1 was from Amanda with my AirPods. Thanks, Amanda. And the other was my new Zen Bivy sleep system. I was excited to find out what that was like. Once we got to the hostel, I called out to Ken, but heard nothing. My packages were all on step, so I picked them up, waved at the security camera just in case he was watching, and headed to Maggie Valley. Unfortunately, the GPS was playing up badly, and it took us on a circuitous mountain route, which made both of us almost seasick. We were turning so often. We eventually made it to a really nice setup. There's a motel, I believe it was, and we headed out to eat for the evening. Well, Dana and I were going to record when we were face to face, but now we're several hundred miles apart. She's gone back home. Hey, honey, how are you?
Hi, I miss you already.
Well, we had a day and a half together, which was really nice when you came up. What was your first impression when you saw me? How did I look? Did I look healthy? Did I look unhealthy, or what?
That was the greatest sight when I turned off the interstate onto that gravel sloping road and I saw you just sitting in that chair that you love so much. And you had like this grin on your face and you look fabulous. You look happier than I've seen in a long time and tan and you lost some weight and that trail just does something for you. You looked great.
It seems to be doing stuff for me. And you said to me straight away, you've lost your gut.
Yes, yes, you did.
How much weight do you think I've lost? Because we didn't actually weigh me, but I think I'm about 20 odd pound down, maybe a little bit more. What do you think?
I said 25 pounds right off the bat. Yep.
Wow.
You look great.
Wow. So do you enjoy the time up here?
I did. I love Maggie Valley. It was even more special because I got to spend the time with you and go to Waynesville. Of course, it was too short. I think it was like 29 hours and 5 minutes. But yeah, of course I did. It was worth the 30 hours of driving to see you.
Oh, my God. 30 hours of driving.
Well, that's with, a few breaks here and there. So.
Right. So when I said I wanted to do this, sometime last year, what was your initial reaction?
Oh, immediately supportive. I remember several years ago, you said you were never going to do this because I had asked you and you said, no, never. And I knew you always would because this is the trail that you love. So when you said you were going to do this, I was excited for you, completely supportive. And I knew it was exactly what you needed.
Were you nervous for me? Are you nervous?
Very nervous.
Yeah. In what way? What do you most fear?
I was scared about you falling, about spending a lot of the time alone.
Only one fall so far.
I know. I'm so proud of you. You have nothing to yell out in a month except for that one. But, you're just a tad bit older. And although you are much stronger because you did prepare very well for this, it's natural to care about the person you love and worry about them when they're away. So I did and I do, but not as much after seeing you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did that allay some of your fears? And it can't just be because I'm happy, or is it because I've done the miles and got there so far?
Absolutely, because you've done the miles and because you've only fallen the one time and because of your enthusiasm and your positive attitude toward it. And I know you can do this. Seeing you convinced me that you can do this because I think you were a little concerned before you left, but now you are so confident. And I'm confident in your ability. So, yeah, the worry is pretty much gone.
Now, one thing that we did, we went to a hairdresser because one thing Dana hates about me is the hair growing out of my nose and my ears. And there was so much this time when she saw me that we found a hairdresser quite urgently. and he gave me a haircut and he defuzzed me as much as possible, didn't he?
You are so lucky I still kissed you because I was so excited to see you despite all that stuff sprouting. But yes, he cleaned you up beautifully.
Yeah, did a
very
good job.
nicely.
Did a good job. Well, look, I'm glad you came. It was lovely to spend that time with you as well. And hopefully we're going to see each other before, for another couple of months pass. And,
Yes.
And I think it's been... I wasn't sure what it would be like, whether it would interfere with my hike or whether it would enhance it. And I feel like it's enhanced it quite a bit. It really made me feel more comfortable, that you were comfortable, and to see you. And I'm really pleased we did it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. I needed to see you. So I know we FaceTime almost every day when you've got a signal, but I actually needed to see you physically. And that was wonderful. And I know we'll do this again. And yeah, I feel great about this for you.
Okay, Annie. All right. Well, I'll speak to you later on anyway. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you.
Day 29, a zero day with Dana. This was a great day. I think we all need zeros from time to time, and this one came at exactly the right time for me. As I said previously, the Smokies are tough, though perhaps not as tough as I'd remembered, yet they're still quite a test, and I think that coming out of the Smokies, most of us tend to breathe a sigh of relief. I certainly did. And that zero, taking that zero at that time, worked out perfectly for both me and for Dana. Of course, there was still plenty to do on this day to prepare myself for getting back on trail the following morning, and I think that Dana and I divided up our day pretty well. First, and most importantly, we found ourselves a really good diner on Yelp and treated ourselves to a bang-up breakfast. While I may not be burning calories on this day, I was clearly in a calorie deficit, so a big breakfast was a step in the right direction. Once that was out of the way, I needed to consider my meals for the next few days, and we headed to Mars General Store in Maggie Valley to get those meals and some steaks from my tent. I don't know if you remember, I lost my steaks. I don't know how I did it. My Durston steaks were in a bag. I just don't know how I did it. And luckily enough, when I'd lost them, I obviously couldn't stake my tent out. But Sweet Tears, if you recall from a couple of weeks back, she had a spare set, so she lent them to me. By the way, Sweet Tears, if you're listening, I'm on 941-524-9410. Text me and tell me where you are and I'll get your steaks to you. Sorry about that. Then, as you heard from Dana, I went to a barber shop for a general defuzzing. I felt so much better. While a wild beard can be kind of dashing, I suppose, in the right context, it can also hide all sorts of food, given our less than scrupulous attention to personal hygiene on this trail. I think I may keep this shorter look throughout the journey. I still had to get my podcast on this day, so we headed back to our accommodation. I sat outside by the creek and recorded and put together the last podcast. In the meantime, Dana was working on some of her students' submissions because she's an English professor, and she marked those accordingly. And we also then went on our own adventure. Dana used to come here years ago with her children and wanted to see if she could find where they spent most of their time. We were driving up and down the road trying to find anything that was familiar. But even though we went down a couple of roads and found dead ends and gravel roads and stuff like that, we could never find the place that she stayed at. I guess that, it was 20 years ago. I guess that speaks to some sort of progress in this world. Maybe. A greasy barbecue joint for an early dinner did nothing for either of us, so we headed back and had an early night. Day 30, which was last Tuesday, by the way, Interstate 40 to Max Patch Road. We left our accommodation in Maggie Valley at about 5 to 6 in the morning because we'd found a good breakfast spot, once again on Yelp, which opened at 6 a.m. just before we joined Interstate 40. The breakfast was great and set me up perfectly for the day. We'd expected bad traffic because the day before everything was down to one lane. They are putting a massive infrastructure project in there, but really it slowed the traffic down. So I thought on the Monday morning it would be jammed, but it wasn't. And we actually got there in about 30 minutes. Dana was a bit tearful as we said goodbye, and after a few hugs and kisses and the odd photograph, I was on my way. She drove off, and I kept checking on the Find My Friends app to see if she was moving in traffic, and I was pleased to see that she was. The climb is instant and very steep, eventually passing the Blue Blaze turnoff to Standing Bear Farm. It's funny, Standing Bear Farm, I stayed at in 2019, and I had a really good time there. I know they've had some problems, a lot of problems, in fact, with the floods, and I understand they've rebuilt. And had I not been seeing Dana, I possibly would have stayed there, although Ken at the Discerning Hiker had already offered us a place. I hope it works out well for them. It was a bit of a vortex in 2019 where people would come to Standing Bear and leave about 5 days later without any idea why they were there for 5 days. It was a fun place to be. I knew that the morning and perhaps some of the afternoon would be some quite steep ups, so I just set about it in a calm, relaxed, slow way. About halfway up, I walked straight into an overhanging sawn-off branch, which staggered me a bit, but fortunately there was no blood. I sat and had lunch with a German couple I'd seen a few times and asked if I could interview them. They agreed, and that interview will play after this recording. We were sitting around at a couple of tent sites right by the trail, and I knew that there was a shelter about 0.2 of a mile on a blue blaze. I had intended to stop at this first shelter, but it was only about 2 p.m. And chatting with that German couple, I felt that I could make another 5 or 6 miles to Max Patch Road and camp there, thus making my journey into Hot Springs that much easier. If you get your miles out of the way on that first day, then you're not chasing miles on the second and third day. I sat in my chair, of course, once the Germans had left, for about 25 minutes thinking about this, and then I made up my mind and went for it. This is not like me. I don't normally do that at all. Once I'm settled down, once my legs and my feet seem to stop working, I don't actually go for it. But I thought to myself, it will be a 12 or 13 mile day. It's quite significant, but it will get me on my way in a way in which I want to be getting on. There was plenty of climbing. In fact, somebody told us later that evening that we did 5,200 feet of elevation that day, which is a heck of a lot on a single day. I eventually made it at about 6:15 p.m. and set up camp with 5 other tents around me. And this was just the sort of scenario I'd envisaged when I started thinking about this trail this year. People camping side by side, preparing food, talking, laughing, and not checking their phones. It's a situation that happens so often on trail, and I relish each time that it does. It was another night that nothing really happened, but we were all kind of together, and I enjoy that. This night was going to be my first night in my new Zenbivy sleep system, and I'm going to talk about that now, not wait until next time. The first thing I noticed as I put it all together was the silky feel of the bed sheet, attached to the airbed through loops in each of the 4 corners of the sheet, which fitted over the airbed perfectly. There was also a restraining strap that went underneath the airbed. I tend to shift about a lot in the night, but I'm delighted to say, much to my surprise, the sheet stayed perfectly intact all night long. The quilt was an open-ended quilt at the bottom, which you could turn into a mummy quilt with a few clips and loops and a drawstring. Over the summer, I'll certainly be opening that right out. So you can imagine the amount of space you gave yourself at the bottom of the bed. I had plenty of space. Then you attach the quilt through coloured loops and hooks to the sheet. It worked really, really well. It truly looks like a bed. That's all I can say, really. And once you get inside, you immediately notice the freedom of movement and the way in which the sheet is designed to keep out all drafts. I was really, really impressed. I know that it's early days with this system, but I can already tell you, if this is a guide to anything, that has gone into my top 3 items of things in my pack that I don't want to do without. In case you're wondering, maybe you weren't, but if you were, the other 2 things are my chair, of course, and my Enlightened Equipment Torrid Apex jacket, which is an incredibly lightweight powerhouse for keeping me warm in the chilly evenings. As I use the Zenbivy system in the next few weeks, I'll give you an update on how it's performing for me. And one last thing from that evening. People, they're not making fun of me for having a chair, but they're kind of interested in what it's like. I let all of them there sit on the chair, and each of them, as soon as they got into it, went, oh, they really liked it. And I reckon I should have got Helinox to sponsor me as well, because I'm telling everybody about my chair. And each one of these 5 people who tried it out loved it. Gives you an idea, really. So I'm sitting on the forest floor with a young German couple. Everyone's younger than me, so please introduce yourselves.
So hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm from Germany, Munich, and my trail name is Barney.
Barney?
Yes.
And what's yours?
And this is Fabian, her husband, and my trail name is 0.5.
0.5. Why are you 0.5?
0.5. The first couple of days when we were hiking with different people, and someone asked me like, "Where's the next water source?" or "Where's camp?" I looked it up in far out. It was always 0.5. Like the first couple of times was funny, but afterwards was like, okay, that's your trail name then.
You know you don't have to accept it, don't you?
I know.
Yeah.
I think it's funny as a story.
Why are you Barney?
I think it's mostly about my backpack. It's a custom Atom Packs, and it's black and purple. So it's like Barney is like the purple dinosaur from the TV series. And the people said I look quite happy all the time. So
You do.
Just got Barney as a name.
You see, it's funny. Some international hikers don't get involved with the other hikers, but you seem to. You seem to interact all the time. How are you enjoying it so far?
It's amazing. So I think we love every minute being on trail and definitely catching up with all the people. It's like shelters, tent sites, lunch spots, getting to know other people, and just immerse in the culture. And it's so great with the hiking community.
And I think there's also like one of the reasons why we chose the AT over the other long distance trails, because we were like thinking about what do we want to experience in this time. And one of the main important aspects was like we really wanted to like get into the culture, getting to know people, talking to people, and all this. And I think of the 3 long distance trails, the AT is like is the social one.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Here.
Yeah. Then you've really got into the culture in another way. What's your favourite restaurant now?
My favorite restaurant. So I really, I didn't try too many yet because it's just beginning of week 4, but I definitely have a favorite as Waffle House because it's such a cool atmosphere and you get quite nice waffles. You get bacon, sausage, hash browns, biscuits and gravy. So this is all the cool stuff and all the calories you can get as a hiker.
Have you tried biscuits and gravy?
Yes.
Had you tried it before you came here?
No.
We tried it not before we've been in the US, but I heard about it like in a couple of like videos and all this.
Yeah,
First, I was very confused about like biscuits and gravy because biscuit was like I thought it was something like a sweet thing, and gravy like a
like
very
a cookie,
whatever. And it was like, okay, that's a very confusing dish. Then I came here and was like, what is it? We have a friend in Atlanta or near Atlanta, and I asked him what it actually is. And he said, oh yeah, you explain it. And I was like, okay, you need to cook it for us. And he said, okay,
great.
Sure,
Yeah.
I do.
It is great.
So we
That's
get
the
a
first time.
homemade biscuits and gravy from our friend
Very
before
nice.
departing to this.
So how did you get most of your gear? Did you bring it with you, or did you buy in Europe, or did you buy some here?
So we bought, we had some gear, but actually we upgraded some gear and bought it directly in the US and got it in the US before starting, because the US is much more advanced in ultralight backpacking. So there are much more brands and much more versatility. So we got a lot of stuff directly from the US.
And you told me earlier on that your backpack you're carrying today weighs about 18 pounds.
Yeah, with I think 1 liter of water and 4 days of food.
That's
it's
great.
quite light.
But that's because 0.5 is carrying most of it.
A little bit more.
I'm carrying a bit more, not too much. I think my pack is maybe like about 26 pounds or so. I don't know exactly. We haven't measured it, but around this, yeah.
There's a question I often ask couples as they're hiking together. I mean, it's a real can be a stress on a relationship because you're with each other literally 24/7. What if one of you decided they just didn't like it or they got injured? Would the other one stop or would the other one carry on?
So we would actually stop. We talked about it beforehand because we were thinking about that this is an option that could happen.
Sure.
So we thought about, hey, let's think it through. Let's be ready for it. And I mean, the most important aspects we want to have here is like a good time together. Have this 6-month period, no work, just being in the nature. We want to enjoy it as a couple. And so we came to the point where we said, okay, if one of us gets injured or has to like step off trail or whatever, or wants to step off trail, would be like a thing for that we do it together. And then maybe after a couple of weeks, if we are like back to health, we probably would continue together. Or maybe we like have a different adventure. I don't know, like having a road trip or whatever.
Right.
There's
So
many
the important bit is
opportunities
being
here.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being together, being out, having a good time.
That's cool. Well, look, you've you've brightened everybody's days, but when you come to a shelter, so everybody's pleased to see you, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. So I'm a month in now, and I feel that I'm coping okay. I mean, I'm certainly not killing it up the hills yet. But as I say, there's not been a mountain I couldn't get over so far. I keep keeping that in my mind. You know, when you're going up a hill, you turn another corner, there's a whole straight up ahead of you. It's a little bit deflating sometimes, but you just keep having to remind yourself, I've done all of these. There's nothing here that I haven't done before. I've just got to keep my head down, keep going slowly upward and stop when I need to stop. But you've just got to keep pushing on. My feet are definitely starting to hurt me on the downhills. I may need to reconsider about whether or not I take on a new pair of shoes that are larger than my current shoes. Though I'd imagine that the options on size 15s could be a little limited. What do you think? But watch this space, as they say. I'll see you next time.